Hi, I'm Jess Fields. Welcome to the show. About a month ago, the state of Texas put out to bid a $295 million contract for contact tracing during the coronavirus pandemic. This is done with federal grant dollars, which Texas and many other states have received during the pandemic, and it was bid on by many large companies, such as IBM and Accenture. But the company that won was not a large company. Instead, a small one, MTX, with offices in Frisco, just north of Dallas, and in Albany, New York, as well as a presence in India. MTX and its elusive founder, Nobel, have been the subject of many questions since the contract was awarded, but perhaps the most common question is simply, who is MTX? Followed by, who is Nobel? While reporters in Texas attempted to piece together the story, many of the articles did not dive into some of the publicly available information about MTX and the founder, Mr. Nobel. I decided to do my own investigation and bring to light some facts which are, for the most part, quite widely available. Everything in this report is sourced with perfect accuracy from primary source documents. You can check them for yourself. I also sought reaction from two different state representatives, and that's in this report. Democrat Joe Deshotel and Republican James White, both members of the Texas House of Representatives, and both offered commentary on what they feel needs to happen in the wake of not only the information that I've collected, but also the information that's come out about this contract, the bidding process, and the company itself. So, without further ado, let's start to answer that question. Who is MTX Group, and how did they win a $295 million contract with the state of Texas?
From prevention measures when it comes to the coronavirus, now to the technology advancements that are helping in this fight.
Since the coronavirus pandemic began, MTX Group and its CEO, Nobel, have taken the opportunity to promote contact tracing as part of its technology offerings. In this interview with KAAL in Minnesota, you can even see that KAAL says that Nobel is an expert in disease monitoring and control.
We may have the symptoms up to 14 days. We may not even know that we have it, right? So obviously that will make it difficult for us to have the proper count.
And in that March 25th interview, Nobel indicates that the contact tracing application was still in development and in internal testing.
So we are looking to really enable these organizations so they can track that. So I like to talk about, we like to drink our own champagne. So we are rolling out that application internally within our organization.
This begs the question of what MTX has actually done on contact tracing. This WFAA report sheds some light.
MTX rolled out this application in 1 week. It monitors travelers coming into the U.S. from China. Those travelers have to consent and are usually asked while at the airport in quarantine by the CDC.
There you go.
If you agree, you only get texts like this one.
Like to monitor you for illness.
One text every day for 14 days.
Thank you for your consent. If they respond no, then they're good for that day. If they respond yes, then they will get a follow-up questions. Why? Thank you for your response. Please click here on this specific link.
MTX is now working with the New York State Department of Health.
On its website, MTX claims to have, quote, the #1 global contact tracing application. It also lists offices located in Frisco, Texas, and in Albany, New York, although has no other contact information beyond an email address. It can be difficult to find information about the company or its founder until you know his real name. His real first name is not Das, but Dastagir, and Dastagir Nobel has a wealth of information available publicly about him and MTX. Dastagir Nobel is listed as the owner of a home in the area of Slingerlands, New York, just outside Albany. Now, MTX B2B Solutions appears to have been registered to an office in Troy, New York in 2008. However, alongside B2B Solutions was also a large number of solar energy companies. However, B2B Solutions isn't the only name by which MTX may have done business. A search of the home in Slingerlands, New York, registered to Dastagir Nobel, also brings up MTX Group, registered in 2018, in March of 2018. This is the same company that Texas actually was reported to have contracted with. Also at the same address, Maverick.io, Nobel Foundation, Nobel Group, Nobel Real Estate, and interestingly, the last company listed is Unagi Sushi, LLC. And it does turn out that Mr. Nobel and his wife Nipa have been featured as owners of a sushi restaurant in Troy. Curiously, the Albany Times-Union reported in November 2018 that the sushi restaurant, the company of which was registered at Dastagir Nobel's Slingerlands, New York address in 2016, had apparently reopened under new owners after, quote, "It withered, then closed over the summer after the sudden departure of founding chef Andy Dong." MTX also has a registered presence in India, with a registration and date of April 19, 2018 in Hyderabad. The directors are listed as a gentleman named Manish Kumar and also Dastagir Nobel, with appointment dates also of April 19, 2018. There's little information about Das on the MTX website, but on his LinkedIn page he's listed as Das Nobel, founder and CEO at MTX Group, Frisco, Texas. His educational credentials are listed as a bachelor's from Siena College, 2000 to 2006, a master's from Colorado Technical University, 2006 to 2008, and a doctorate of management, organizational development, and leadership, 2008 to 2012. Separately, in his career experience, he's listed as having been an adjunct faculty member at Siena College. Siena College was able to confirm that Dastagir Nobel did attend in the date ranges that he says on his LinkedIn, as well as his faculty advisor, Dr. Eric Breimer, who is the department chair of computer science at Siena, gave Das Nobel a glowing review and said, as a student, Das had so much knowledge gained from work experience and entrepreneurial endeavors. He was one of the most gifted students I've ever encountered. Then I turned my attention to confirming his graduation from Colorado Technical University, where he claims on his LinkedIn to have achieved a master's and a doctorate. But when I called CTU's registrar's office to confirm that information, I ran into a little bit of a hiccup. In the audio clip that follows, you will hear a phone call that I had with the registrar's office at Colorado Technical University to confirm Das Nobel's degrees of master's and doctorate with the university. I have edited out the middle portion of the audio, but I've kept the very beginning so that you can hear that I'm really talking to the registrar's office, and then at the end you'll hear where I confirm the information that I'm told.
Thank you for calling the CTU Registrar's Department. This call may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance purposes. This is I can help you.
And so the first one, the IT management, says 2006 to 2008. The doctorate of management says 2008 to 2012.
That's correct. 2009, and then the last day of attendance was 2010.
2009 to 2010?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was a doctorate of management achieved?
This person didn't graduate for that part.
Okay. So, Mr.
So his
Nobel,
last day of attendance was just 2010.
Okay. So just so I'm clear on this, Das Nobel, D-A-S-N-O-B-E-L, this is the individual we're speaking about, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He did attend Colorado Technical University from 2006 to 2008, correct, for IT management?
For IT management, yes.
Yes. And then enrolled for a doctorate of management in 2009, but was unenrolled in 2010.
Correct. So his last day of enrollment, his last day of attendance was 6/18/2010.
he did not achieve or finish a doctorate of management?
This one, no, I don't see any.
So if this person, if Mr. Nobel, claimed that he had a doctorate of management from Colorado Technical University, that would be incorrect.
Correct.
As the phone call makes clear, Mr. Nobel was said by this individual in the Registrar's Department at Colorado Technical University to not have achieved the doctorate, even though he lists on his LinkedIn page, Colorado Technical University, Doctorate of Management, Organizational Development and Leadership, 2008 to 2012. One interesting finding about MTX and Mr. Nobel is that they are presently being sued in the United States District Court, Northern District of New York, for back compensation by a former employee named Richard Lynch. He claims that Nobel and MTX failed to pay him over $189,000 for sales to governments of contracts totaling over $3.5 million. The court case is presently in mediation. I tried repeatedly reaching out to Mr. Nobel for comment on all of this. Unfortunately, I was unable to reach him or even to leave a message.
Hello, this is Dastagir with MTX Group. I am not available right now. Kindly leave a message. Bye-bye.
Sorry, that mailbox is full. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
For reaction to all of this, I spoke to two longtime members of the Texas House of Representatives, Democratic Representative Joe Deshotel and Republican Representative James White. First, Representative Deshotel.
I appreciate you joining me. And what was your impression when you heard about this $295 million federal grant that was being disbursed through a very quick bidding process to a company that very few had heard of? What was your initial impression?
Well, initially I like to give people, the benefit of the doubt. I said, okay, it was awarded in 2 days. Maybe there's a provision in the code for emergency situations, and maybe it met those emergency situations. Other thing I heard that it was a brand new company to get that type of contract, which also raises a red flag. And then I'm saying, well, just because it's a new company doesn't mean it's qualified. I would suppose if you were looking for an investment house and Warren Buffett started a new ABC company 3 weeks ago and you hired him, he was certain to be qualified. The company wasn't an old company. So without knowing those background facts, I thought those backgrounds should be checked out, as you are doing. I thought someone should verify why it was awarded so quickly. What was the emergency? Why didn't it go out through a full bid process? And secondly, a new company like that, who are the principals? What are their qualifications and things of that?
Right.
I thought should be looked at as well, which I think are being done. Both of those are being done.
So, Representative, you have, just for folks listening, how many years in the Texas House? You've been there for a little while.
1999. I'm in my 10th legislative session.
10th term. So you've seen a lot of bidding processes, you've seen a lot of contracts awarded, and you've chaired a lot of committees, importantly, and dealt with a lot of local issue committees. Actually, you've been the chair of the local issues committee, I think, several times. So, explain a little bit, what's the normal bidding process that the state goes through? Could you kind of reveal a little bit about that?
Well, we are certainly aware of contracts. We don't get into the bidding process at all. It's done at the agency. There's some broad parameters, and the rules are written, by agencies, but they all seem to be geared at opening it up to the public and to qualified bidders, and having a responsible or reasonable amount of time in which they review the bids and vet the individual companies. So it appears that what raised the red flag here is that those things weren't done. I mean, in two days it goes out, 2 days later it's awarded. Immediately makes one wonder, well, who do these people know? You know, they must. How did this happen? And you would hope, particularly with that agency, which has had problems in the past with contract awards being investigated and being overturned, you would think that they would be particularly careful to dot every I and cross every T. But how can you do that in 2 days? So, you know, I'm glad that it's being looked at.
When you say, Representative, they've had problems in the past, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, I don't know the specific contract. I know that HHSC has had some contracts investigated in the past. There were large contracts awarded. People have been removed from executive directors, even though they may not have been involved. They have been removed because the buck stops at the top. The buck normally it does stop at the head person. So when that happens once, I would think that an agency head would make sure that every step was taken that has to be taken, and it doesn't appear that you can do that in 2 days. And so I think that is really what raised the size of the contract. Even though it's $300 million, is not that big of a contract for that size agency. I mean, there are a lot of $100 million contracts that we enter into, and many of them are flowing very smoothly and raise no eyebrows. What raised the eyebrows here was the company was unknown, and the time with which from letting the bid to awarding the contract. Those two things raised huge red flags.
So, Representative, one of the things that that was discovered in some background research is that according to an individual in the registrar's office at Colorado Technical University, this is the university that the founder of MTX says he attended for both master's and the doctoral program, and that was done. The master's, they said he did receive there. The doctoral program, according to this individual, which I have the recording that I played earlier on this podcast report, but according to that individual, he did not complete the doctoral program, and so obviously a little bit more looking into maybe needs to be done with that to confirm whether that is or is not the case. But regardless, obviously there maybe is just a little bit of a question there, given that someone at the university is saying, didn't complete it. I mean, what is your reaction to that, and what's your reaction just to the idea that maybe we don't know a whole lot about the company? I mean, is it important for you that a company that has a contract like this, I mean, do we need to kind of know about them, or is it okay that, if it's a kind of an unknown company? What's your opinion?
No, we need to know that they're qualified and that they are above board in their operation. The fact that I've never heard of them doesn't mean a whole lot. But the fact that they have misrepresented their qualifications or when you start doing that, I think you do that for a reason. It's because maybe you're not as qualified to do whatever you're aiming at, so you embellish your qualifications. And once you see that, well, I think you have a duty to the taxpayers to see what else may have been embellished in this operation and how did that happen. So I'm glad that you're looking into it.
Then I took a moment to speak with Republican Representative James White, and here's what he had to say.
Well, Representative, let me ask you a couple of questions specifically about the company. The company that won the contract is called MTX. They beat out companies such as the Houston Chronicle reported they beat out IBM and Accenture and other very large firms that have tremendous resources. But according to the Chronicle reporting, MTX has a limited presence in Texas. And so I did a little bit of background investigation about the company, and it was registered in the state of New York to a residential address, along with a couple of other companies at the same residential address in Albany County, New York, in early 2017, and an international consulting firm by the same name was registered in Hyderabad, India, in 2018. And then the founder of MTX, a gentleman named Nobel, his real name Dastagir, an immigrant of Bangladesh, a Bangladeshi American citizen, or Bengali American, I think technically, but he actually claims on his LinkedIn profile that he received a doctorate from Colorado Technical University. And when I contacted the registrar's office, and on this same podcast report, I've included a recording of this, but the registrar's office told me that he did not complete a doctorate there. And there appear to be some questions about the background of this company and of its founder. And I'm curious if you think, State Representative James White, that those are relevant questions, or are those not relevant questions as Texas considers awarding the $295 million federal grant to this company?
Well, it's not so much if state rep believes that they're relative. They're important. I do think they're important, but I think they're important for the people of Texas. I think the questions I'm getting from constituents, they think these types of things that are important. I mean, just understand what our constituents have been faced with over the last several. I mean, questions about their medical privacy, questions about their civil liberties. This is very, very. I think these things are unnecessary. And look, Jess, you're familiar with Texas government, and you know that HHSC has had some challenging contracting situations in the recent past. And I believe my second and third session, we passed many, many bills to add more transparency to the HHSC. I think this is the HHSC contract, right? We have passed numerous bills to strengthen and add more transparency to our HHSC contracting processes. And I think many people are wondering, did we maintain fidelity to those contracting principles of evaluating the vendor, the appropriate sign-offs by the appropriate statewide officials. So it's all of that. So I think, to the extent that, I think all this information that you're discussing is something that my constituents would definitely would have wanted me to look at, if there was some legislative engagement. And look, Jess, the situation we're in now, right? Legislative engagement could be anywhere from consulting issues up with chairs of committees that have, legislative oversight, various members of the legislature. For example, you're talking about a lot of computer stuff and software stuff. I know my colleague out of Tarrant County, Representative Giovanni Caprione. He's done a lot of work in this IT policy lane, okay? We have a lot of great doctors in both chambers that have done a lot of work in that cross-section of disease control, disease response, and even probably with their own private practice, right? My former colleague, Frank, he chairs the House Committee on Health and Human Services. I have another colleague, Representative Symphonia Thompson over at Public Health. So it could be in a limited way, it could be that, right?
Well, let me ask you, Representative. I mean, in terms of the solution to all this, you know, one other thing with the company, obviously, is that because the company appears to have a large offshore presence and perhaps is hiring or will be hiring many people in offshore locations, such as India, is there a concern about security with the private information of U.S. citizens being distributed for a contact tracing program to a company that has its operations perhaps somewhere else?
Absolutely. One thing that I've been looking at a lot over the interim, Jess, is our reliance on so much of our economy offshore, especially in China, but offshore in general. It's very concerning to me. It's very concerning to my constituents. You know, where is this information being uploaded to? Is it going to be a cloud? I mean, by God, this is your personal, private medical information. And again, this is not conspiratorial. This is not any heightened, a frightened interest of State Representative White. These are the issues that are coming to me from constituents. So I will tell you this, Jess. I don't care if it was AT&T. I don't care if it was Accenture. I would be getting the same questions. Okay? So much money, and we understand the federal government wants this money spent by, December 30th. We understand that. But what my constituents are telling me, not James White, not other members of the legislature, what they're telling me is they do not care. This is still taxpayer money. They don't care about the origin. This is still taxpayer money. These are new revenues that are coming into the state, and they just believe that there should be more transparency and more legislative involvement. That's all.
Well, State Representative James White, thank you so much for joining me and answering a few questions about MTX and the deal where they've received $295 million, it appears, this contract from the state. And federal dollars, as you say, though, many are concerned about the fact that it's being maybe done in this way. And certainly the story will continue. I appreciate you joining me.
And if I could add one thing, I got to say.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I think we should just stop the contract right now. Maybe there'll be some penalties involved. I don't know.
Okay.
We should stop the contract. Reassess. Okay, before we move forward. Just stop the contract. It's
wow. So Representative, you're saying that the questions that have been raised are enough for you to just say, just stop the contract totally?
Yes, just stop the contract right now. Because here's the deal. I don't think what we're trying to do on the contact tracing is so positive that we need to close the deal now. Okay? I don't think that's the case. I'm talking to local government, and this is just one state district, right? Rep district, right? This contact tracing, all of that is being done now. Okay? I have not had any local government official, any local health director reach out to me and say, we need we need to do something. We need to make a vast departure from what we're doing now in contact tracing. Okay? I haven't heard that. Matter of fact, I was on a call with other government agencies and members of the legislature, and I was told that we're doing this now, and it's going great now. That's at least what I was told. So maybe we need to do more. I don't know, but $300 million is a whole lot when really contact tracing starts with me talking to my private doctor.
Wow. State Representative James White, appreciate your words and your insight and responses, and we will see where this goes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
That the reaction of State Representatives Joe Deshotel, a Democrat, and James White, a Republican. That's all we've got for this short investigation into MTX Group and Dastagir Nobel, its CEO and chairman. There will surely be more of this story. Thank you for listening to this special investigation edition of the Jess Fields Show. If you'd like to be a guest or perhaps have an idea for a guest, send us an email at jessfieldshow@gmail.com. We're located on all of your favorite podcast apps as well as on YouTube. Thanks for listening.